G'day guys, we finally have the index for World Eaters in our hands, so let's have a look at what these blood-soaked maniacs can do in 10th edition Warhammer 40k.
Look for the Blood God.
Alright, next up we have a unit that hasn't seen much competitive play in World Eaters forces for some time, but I think this guy is going to see significant tabletop presence going forward, and that is the Demon Prince. Now, the Demon Prince comes in two different data sheets in the World Eaters Codex. You've got the Demon Prince, and then you've got the Demon Prince with wings. These guys are very similar on their data sheet. One of them, the one without wings, has increased toughness, whereas the one with the wings has obviously the fly keyword and increased move. Other than that, their datasheet is more or less identical. The big difference with these guys are the abilities that they bring, and I think this is where they're going to really shine. Alright, so the Demon Prince with wings has got one really interesting rule going for him, and that is that any units in engagement range with him in the fight phase have to take a battle shock check. So if you're able to get his relatively big base into multiple units, you're going to be able to force battle shock on multiple units, which is really, really cool. But he also has an ability which is really, really interesting, which is basically he gets to select a target at the start of the game, and he gets reroll hits and wounds versus that target. However, if he fails to kill, or if you fail to kill that target at the end of the game, he is automatically removed as a casualty. So he is shamed for not claiming that skull. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are saying this is a bit of a problem, because if you select that target at the start of the game, your opponent can just insulate and protect that target and prevent you from getting that kill. However, this is not really a big problem because it does two things. One, it's a psychological weapon. You can pick a unit, and now your opponent has to consider that unit more than they otherwise would. This might be a small unit that they might want to throw away, but now they're worried about throwing it away. Or it might be a really durable unit, and now they're like, well, actually, it's not that durable because that Demon Prince is going to go in and reroll all of his hits and his wounds and do massive damage. So it really does play with your opponent's ability to predict and execute their game plan. But the other thing that this does, which is really simple, is that if this is something that you're concerned about, you can just pick a really squishy unit in their army that you know you're going to kill. It doesn't necessarily have to be killed by your Demon Prince, so it might just be a unit of guardsmen, it might just be a land speeder, it might be something really insignificant that you know your opponent is going to throw forward, and therefore you're going to be able to kill it relatively easily. It's also worth noting that there's a decent chance that him dying at the end of the battle isn't going to matter. It's not like he dies at the end of a battle round. He dies at the end of the game. So ultimately, who cares? The game's over at that point. You've either won or lost, right? It's very rare that him dying at the end of the game is actually going to impact the total score. So that's the Demon Prince with wings, but the one that I think is the standout is the Demon Prince without wings. It's amazing what not having wings can do for you. Alright, so the first thing that the wingless Demon Prince gets is devastating wounds on any turn that he made a charge. Now, devastating wounds, in my opinion, is the most broken rule in 10th edition, and anytime you can gain access to it, you absolutely should. Being able to turn any 6 to wound into just mortal wounds instead of damage is really, really good, particularly on a bloke like this who has a flat 3 damage weapon. So being able to go, okay, cool, I got X number of attacks, I go in, oh, cool, I got 2 6s in my wound rolls, that's 6 mortal wounds on the target. Like, that's so good. That's good into big things like vehicles that are tough to wound, but it's also really good into things like Horde, because if you do 6 mortal wounds, well, if they're single wound models, that's 6 models dead. So this turns this guy into a bit of an infantry cleaver as well as a big target hunter. It makes him so much more serious in combat. But the main thing that this guy adds, which is really, really, really silly, is he has a 6-inch aura of units within that range gain a 4-up invulnerable save. Now, you might be looking at this going, yeah, but I mean, we've got 3-up armor across the board, more or less, so what's a 4-up invulnerable save? And this really comes into shine when you consider Jackals. Now, Jackals don't have an armor save, like they've got a 6-up save, so being able to go, cool, they've got a 4-up invulnerable save is a massive buff on those Jackals. And further to that, Jackals have an inbuilt 6-up Feel No Pain, which you can buff to a 5-up Feel No Pain with your Blessings of Cornroll. So now this Demon Prince on foot is giving a 6-inch aura that's going to result in having very, very cheap models that have a 4-up invulnerable save and a 5-up feel no pain. And they're probably going to be like 7 points a model. That is ridiculously tough for such a cheap model. And then you're going to be able to spindle them off like tendrils. So the idea here is your unit doesn't have to be wholly within, you just have to be within that 6-inch aura range. So I think an interesting list that we're probably going to see is 2 Demon Princes on foot, and they'll sit behind ruins in your backfield somewhere where they can't just be shot off the table. And then from there, you'll have 120 Jackals, and you'll basically make sure that a couple of Jackals are next to this Demon Prince and they tendril out onto that objective. A couple of Jackals next to this one, tendril out onto that objective. And you'll basically just make sure that everything is within range of those guys. So you've just got this ridiculously tough horde. And then on top of that, with whatever points you have left to spare, you're going to be sending in things like Angron, you're going to be sending in things like 8-bound just to deal those early turn damage to your opponent. And anything that they have that you think can reliably get through your horde, you'll send them in to kill. So that's a really interesting archetype, and that is facilitated largely by the 4-up invulnerable save aura on the Demon Prince without wings. So let me know what you guys think of the Demon Princes. Do you have a preference, the winged one or the one with no wings? I know for sure I take the one with no wings. However, there is an argument to be made for a character that has wings, that can fly, that has 12-inch move, that can advance and charge, that can get +2 to his move from the Blessings of Khorne, that can then go in and reroll all hits and wounds against a selected target. That sounds to me like a unit that's going to go out there and solve problems for you. So there's an argument for that as well. Potentially, you run 3 Demon Princes, 2 without wings and 1 with wings. Who knows? So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, because I'd really like to get your thoughts on this.
Look for the Blood God.
The Warhammer community suffers from some of the most prohibitively expensive essentials in the world, especially Australian content creators. Every single day, Dean wants to create content, but he can't. Suffering from old, worn-out brushes, expensive model kits, and costly software and equipment he can't endure much longer. Just look at this dirty paint water. Would you drink this? Would you let your child? Even a small monthly donation can help provide Dean with clean paint water, basic tools for survival, and access to life-saving information and education. So please, follow the links in the description below and find out how you can sponsor Dean today and end the suffering. Suffering that is cruel, unsustainable, and your fault.